Nasha Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatirtha Vashloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naisiti. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is service unto the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of God and the worship of transcendental souls become established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 17. Today's text is going to be text 2 through 4, because 2 and 3 don't have a purport. I'll read those by myself, and then we'll do 4 responsibly. So text 2. Sahachalahu Ashelu Nishak Sarvat Praja Chalahu Sokasha Sanaya Petu Ketavashar Ketavaha. Translation: there were earthquakes along the mountains on the earth, and it appeared that there was fire everywhere. Many inauspicious planets, actually no, this is the wrong word. I'm doing, let's see, make sure I'm on the right spot. Yeah, no, that's 4. That's not what we're supposed to do responsibly. Let me go back into the other 2. I had jumped ahead to read what 4 was. So let's go back to text 2. Yeah. Okay. Vitistu Bhartadesha Apatya Parisankini Purne Varsasate Sadhi Putro Pasusue Yamao. The translation: the virtuous lady Viti had been very apprehensive of trouble to the gods, that's lowercase g, notice, from the children in her womb, and her husband predicted the same. She brought forth twin sons after a full 100 years of pregnancy. Text number 3. Utpata Bhavasatra Nipetu Jayamanayo Vibhu Vyantaricheta Lokasyu Vayavaha. Translation: on the birth of the 2 demons, there were many natural disturbances, all very fearful and wonderful in the heavenly planets, the earthly planets, and in between them. And then 4. So this was the response. Sahachalamu Vashelur Ishak Sarva Prajanjaluhu Sokasha Sanayak Petu Ketavasharti Hetavaha Sahachalamu Vashelur Ishak Sarva Prajanjaluhu Sokasha Sanayak Petu Ketavasharti Hetavaha Sahachalamu Vashelur Ishak Sarva Prajanjaluhu Sokasha Sanayak Petu Ketavasharti Hetavaha. Please chant.
So
When natural disturbances occur on a planet, one should understand that a demon must have taken birth there. In the present age, the number of demoniac people is increasing. Therefore, natural disturbances are also increasing. There is no doubt about this, as we can understand from the statement of the Bhagavatam. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vijayani Nirvisheshwani Paschachani Om Ajnanatambarandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unglitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shnabitam Jena Gujale Swayam Upakadamayam Vedati Swapadantikam Vandayaham Shri Guru Shri Padapala Shri Guru Vaisnavascha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Maganatam Vitam Samasiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Purishna Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganam Abhita Shri Vishakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavadam Tilavate Gopes Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavanesi Krishna Musate Paramani Hari Pancha Kopatubhya Kripasindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhagavata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. To be able to read signs around you, what I would indicate things that aren't going to happen. Many people like to go to astrologers to find out what the future is, but nowadays it's very difficult to find a qualified astrologer because ultimately the best astrologer is a devotee astrologer, not just somebody who thinks they know, they read some book or somebody told them about the different planet signs. Some devotees take it very, very seriously. Like I know my brother Satyanarayan Prabhu, there's an internet site, Panchadrik, I think it's called, where you can, if you're going to take a trip, you look on the site and it will tell you the best time to leave home. Because you don't want to leave in Mercury, you don't want to leave, different stars have different influences. You want to leave during Guru, rest, Jupiter, or during the influence of the moon, like that. So here's mentioned Saturn is always inauspicious. You definitely don't want to leave home during the influence of Saturn. Generally, I don't take it so seriously, but he reminds me all the time. You get it, look at it. Okay, he gave me an example of Jutta Karma. He also prods Jutta Karma to look at the site before taking his trips. And he said one time he didn't do it, and the whole thing was a mess. The person who picked him up was not good, and so many things happened. Bad things happened on the way to the airport, and like that. So he swears by this. You have to look at the indicators. Srila Prabhupada didn't take it so seriously. Like one indicator or one recommendation is don't travel on Thursday. So Prabhupada had to travel on Thursday, and he would put his bags outside and go the night before to indicate that the trip actually started on Wednesday. So like that, Prabhupada kind of went along, but he didn't take it so seriously. And he said in one class, he said, who goes to astrologer? Only fools. And he gave the example of this foolish person who climbed on a tree, and he was sitting on the branch between the trunk of the tree is here, he's sitting on the branch, and he's cutting the branch between himself and the trunk. So any other person knows what's going to happen. So one guy was going, I said, hey, don't do that, you're going to play, mind your own business. So he kept sawing, and then lo and behold, the branch broke and he fell. So he figured this guy must be an astrologer. He knew what was going to happen. So he went running after him to find out his future. So Prabhupada said, only fools go to astrologers. Whatever is going to happen in your life is going to happen. You can't change it. So going to an astrologer is not going to change what's going to happen. It may give you some indication. You may know that the next couple of years is not going to be so good. But it was going to happen anyway. It's not that the astrologer made it happen. The astrologer may give you some indication that it's going to happen. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So in general, Vaishnavas don't worry so much about astrology. Normally, or I should say, one activity where you Vaishnavas like to go to astrologers is marriage. They want to know, am I going to get a good partner? So, Prabhupada said yes, if you can find a good astrologer, you can go. But he said, even if the astrology is not so favorable, if the boy and girl are Vaishnavas, then it can work. Then it can work. Otherwise, again, we're not so concerned. And even if it's not so favorable, like in Prabhupada's case, the wife was not such a favorable partner in terms of progressive life and spiritual life. But he said it was good. His father stopped him from getting married. He didn't like the girl. It was an arranged marriage, obviously. He didn't like her. So at that time in India, you could still, polygamy was allowed. So he was considering getting another wife. And his father said, no, it's good that you don't get along. It's good that you're not so satisfied. And it'll be easier for you to get out when the time comes. grandson of Krishna. And then he made preparations, even though he was not that old, he made preparations to go back to Godhead, which is the ultimate goal of life. So, yesterday was the disappearance of Haridas Thakur. Brigupati gave class, he didn't mention. But in the past, at least when I joined, almost 50 years ago, we used to actually read that entire pastime when it was Haridas Thakur's disappearance. Prabhupada indicated it was a very, very important pastime to understand, to hear and to understand. And because we all have to prepare for that moment. So I'm going to take the time to read just the translations of a portion of that pastime, because we should meditate on that. Actually, in our ceiling here, we have two pastimes that relate to Haridas Thakur. We have his actual disappearance. That painting in the corner there depicts Haridas Thakur's disappearance. And then, of course, this painting here, where Lord Nityananda is attacked, it's also related to Haridas Thakur. He was the companion preacher. Just like every day, Brigupati takes one of his Sankirtan devotees. It's good for devotees to go out and preach together and not alone. So this particular pastime also involved Haridas Thakur. He was on the preaching mission with Nityananda Prabhu when they were attacked. So let me just jump to that section of this is the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila, chapter 11. And I'm just going to read the translations from verses 50 to 70 so we can get some meditation on that very important pastime. Now, how is it related to what we're reading today? Because we know that Haridas Thakur is an incarnation of Lord Brahma. So he appeared in Chaitanya Lila and he was given the title Namacharya. So text 50. In front of all the great devotees like Ramananda Rai and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to describe the holy attributes of Haridas Thakur. 51. As he described the transcendental attributes of Haridas Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seemed to possess 5 mouths. The more he described, the more his great happiness increased. 52. After hearing of the transcendental qualities of Haridas Thakur, all the devotees present were struck with wonder. They all offered their respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur. 53. Haridas Thakur made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sit down in front of him, and then he fixed his eyes like 2 bumblebees on the lotus face of the Lord. 54. He held the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on his heart, and then took the dust of the feet of all the devotees present and put it on his head. 55. He began to chant the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya again and again. As he drank the sweetness of the face of the Lord, tears constantly glided down from his eyes. 56. While chanting the holy name of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, he gave up his air of life and left his body. So that's what we all have to do. At some point in the future, we have to give up the air of life and leave this body. 57. Seeing the wonderful death of Haridas Thakur by his own will, which was just like a great mystic yogi's, everyone remembered the passing away of Bhishma. 58. There was a tumultuous noise as they all chanted the holy names Hari and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. 59. The Lord raised the body of Haridas Thakur and placed it on his lap. Then he began to dance in the courtyard in great ecstatic love. So that's what's depicted in that painting. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu picked up Haridas Thakur's body and he was dancing. Text 60. Because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, all the devotees were helpless, and in ecstatic love they also began to dance and chant congregationally. 61. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced for some time, and then Sarup Damodar Goswami informed him of other rituals for the body of Thakur Haridas. So this is another indicator. When devotees leave their body, we should know the proper rituals to perform. Text 62. The body of Haridas Thakur was then raised onto a carrier that resembled an airship and taken to the sea, accompanied by congregational chanting. If nothing else, we have to chant. 63. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in front of the procession, and Prakeshwara Pandit, along with the other devotees, chanted and danced behind him. 64. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bathed the body of Haridas Thakur in the sea, and then declared, quote, From this day on, this sea has become a great pilgrimage site. So this is in the area of Jagannath Puri. How many of you have been there? Jagannath Puri? Yeah, so you can go to the actual spot where this took place. 65. Everyone drank the water that had touched the lotus feet of Haridas Thakur, and then they smeared remnants of Lord Jagannath's sandalwood pulp over Haridas Thakur's body. Again, indication of what to do when a Vaishnava leaves the body. 66. After a hole was dug in the sand, the body of Haridas Thakur was placed into it. Remnants from Lord Jagannath, such as his silken robes, sandalwood pulp, food, and cloth were placed on the body. Now, because he's Acharya, his body was not burned. It was interred, placed in the earth. But that's not the case for everybody. This is Apa culture, this bad culture of putting all bodies in the ground, just wasting the earthly space. That's not to be done. Vedic culture is only extremely important personalities are buried. Everyone else's body is burned. 67. All around the body, the devotees performed congregational chanting, and Bhakreshwar Pandit danced in jubilation. 68. With his transcendental hands, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally covered the body of Haridas Thakur with sand, chanting, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. 69. The devotees covered the body of Haridas Thakur with sand and then constructed a platform upon the site. The platform was protected all around by fencing. Why would that be necessary? Because if you don't protect the site where a body is buried, animals will come and dig it up. Text 70, last one we'll read from the pastime. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced and chanted all around the platform, and as the holy name of Hari roared tumultuously, the whole universe became filled with the vibration. Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. So similarly, when Srila Prabhupada left his body in 1977 in Vrindavan, his body was interred. It was not burned. And because his followers, his disciples at that time, 77 means the oldest disciple was 10 years old. Prabhupada started this movement in 66 in New York. So in 77, his longest running disciple was coming on 10 years as a disciple. So not very experienced. They didn't really know exactly what to do. So Prabhupada instructed them before he left his body to take advice from some members of the Gaudiya Math who had been through that. They've been around for a while. Some people later misconstrued that Prabhupada wanted to give his movement to the Gaudiya Math. That was not the case. Prabhupada did not want to do that. He only wanted his disciples to take instruction how to properly inter the body, because he had never been through it. They'd never been through that before. So a hole was dug and Prabhupada's body, you can see pictures, there are pictures that were taken. Prabhupada's body was done, some salt was brought, and all of the proper rituals were performed. And then at the site, they created this memorial that we have now in Vrindavan, Prabhupada's Samadhi Memorial in Vrindavan. And then some flowers were taken from the ceremony and taken to Mayapur. And the Pushpa Samadhi was created in Mayapur. So we have two Samadhis of Prabhupada, where the actual body is, his actual body is in Vrindavan. How many of you have been to Krishna Balaram Mandir? So it's a holy site, obviously. Vrindavan, one thing, Krishna Balaram Mandir, and Prabhupada's Samadhi. So at least once in your lifetime, you should make a plan to go to ISKCON's Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. They constructed, or I should say created, a wonderful brass murti of Prabhupada, gigantic. And the system in Krishna Balaram Mandir is that Mangalarti, they chant the prayers to the Guru in front of Srila Prabhupada in his Samadhi Mandir, and then they go to the main temple, Krishna Balaram temple, to complete Mangalarti there. And similarly in Mayapur, although they don't, in Mayapur they do both. They have Mangalarti in both places, in the Pushpa Samadhi and in the main temple. And now, of course, the TOVP is nearing end of construction. They're going to be inaugurating Temple of Lord Nrsingadev, I think sometime in November, right? And if you can go. But the main temple, I have been praying all my life. It's funny, I went to Vrindavan first in 1976, and wonderful experience, even though it was kind of hard. We didn't have the amenities that we have now. We stayed in Pogla Ashram, and I got very, very ill. But I remember, prior to that, we had gone to Mayapur. And I remember when we arrived first we landed in Calcutta. We spent a night in the temple, Albert Road. Temple was there already. And so on that trip, there were 400 devotees from the US that traveled in one plane. We chartered a plane, 747, from Air India. And so we were all on that one flight we landed in Calcutta. And it was interesting, I've told this story before, but on the way over, we were it's nothing but devotees, so what do? You have Mangal Arti. So we had Mangal Arti and we were jumping up and down. And the pilot said, please sit down, you can't do this. Imagine on an airplane, everybody jumping up at the same time. So he said, sit down. Anyway, so we arrived in Calcutta. I remember it was late evening, and we went to the ISKCON temple on Albert Road. And my first impression that night was these Bengali brahmacharis, there were quite a few of them staying there. At 9 o'clock at night, they were eating huge meal, big mountain of rice with dal and a little bit of sabji. 9 o'clock at night. And we had been trained here in the Dwarka at night you get a cup of milk and maybe a cookie, and that was it. That was your evening meal. But here we went to India, and these, small, they were mostly small stature, Bengali brahmacharis, and they were eating huge mountain of rice. We were wondering, how are they going to wake up? But they did. They got up in the morning. So then after that, we went by bus from Calcutta to Mayapur. And I remember when I arrived in Mayapur, I felt on a visceral level, very deep down, that this is my home. So I love Vrindavan, but I feel more at home in Mayapur. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. So this business of leaving the body is going to happen to all of us. Like Prabhupada reminded his disciples before he left, don't think this is not going to happen to you. It's going to happen to you. You have to be prepared. This is what I'm preparing you for, Prabhupada said. I'm preparing you for this moment. How to leave your body. This is what Christian consciousness is all about. We're being trained, all of us, to be ready to leave our bodies. So a couple of days ago on Vamana Dwadasi, one of our, you could say, community devotees, because her and her husband, Dwarkadish, they really supported it. So Lilavati Mataji left her body at home. They lived in Orange County. And her husband had already passed away. Many of you knew Dwarkadish. But Lilavati, to me, was such a special soul. There's a saying in English that intelligence means keeping your wits about you when everybody else are losing theirs. Keeping your head, in other words, staying sane and sober when everybody else is freaking out. So she was like that. She was always very sober, very practical, very just calming, a very calming person to be around, because she was always like that. Did a lot of service for Rukmini Dwarkadish, both her and her husband, but she loved to come here, even though it was a long drive. And even after Dwarkadish left, it was very difficult for her to come because she didn't drive, so somebody had to drive her, or she had to take an Uber all the way from Orange County. But she's still she couldn't do it anymore because her body was breaking down. Up to that point, she was still coming to do her Rukmini Dwarkadish Pujari Seva. So like I said, very, very wonderful personality, very hospitable, and not only just the big gurus like her guru was Bhakti Sri Maharaj, any devotee. She was always ready to cook and serve like that. Very, very hospitable person, and very much into the Shastra. She loved hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, loved hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita, and again, just an all-around very, very calming person, very sober Vaishnavi, and both her and her husband, they produced two very nice children. Nihar is not yet the firstborn, Nihar's son. He's not yet initiated, but he's aspiring. And Rupal became, what's her name, Radha Mohini Dasi. So very, very wonderful devotee in her own right. So wonderful family. Both father and mother initiated, Radha Mohini is already initiated. Her husband is a devotee like that, just expanding. Nihar's wife is also born in a devotee family. Her family was in South Africa. She came here to marry Nihar. And so just wonderful family to know. But Lilavati was, like I said, a very standout personality because of her very calming influence. She was such a grounded Vaishnavi, just very, very fixed in her devotion. So she had deities at home, and she worshipped those deities religiously, and so she was allowed by their grace to pass away in front of them. She left her body in front of her deities. And so I have no doubt, sometimes when somebody dies, you don't know exactly what happened. No, we actually don't know. Even in the case of Jayananda, Prabhupada said, when he heard the description of how he left his body just after Mangalarti and like that, he said, based on what I've heard, he went back to Godhead. But if he had a tinge of material desire, he would be promoted to the heavenly planets for some time and then go back to Godhead. So we don't really know exactly when somebody leaves what their mental state is. But based on, again, the description that I've heard of how Lilavati left her body, I am pretty much absolutely sure that she went back to Godhead. She was chanting as much as possible up to the very end. She was clutching her beads. Her son-in-law was reading Bhagavatam. Her daughter I promised to chant an extra 16 rounds on her behalf that day, like that. So everything was auspicious. She left on Vaman Dwadasi. Everything auspicious. So all of us have to take this seriously. We have to, on a moment-to-moment basis, keep our life auspicious. And the easiest way to do that is to always chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Constantly chant. Either you're chanting or hearing or doing some practical service, which is the same as chanting. We shouldn't, jeopardize our service by trying to chant or hear while we're serving. Concentrate on the service. But at every moment, we should be engaged in one of the 9 aspects. And there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that says, Antakale cha porshag agate gatasapasa. Chinyat asanga shastrena spriham deham chuye natam. That Antakale, when that last moment comes, one has to be determined to give up all attachments. Every one of us has some attachment, great or small. That's why we're still in this material world. We're attached to something or some position or honor or some personality, personalities, or even just inanimate objects we're attached to. But before that last moment comes, we have to cut off all of that. Otherwise, it'll bring us back here. And we don't, just like we heard in today's verse, so many disturbances were there when the demons were about to be born. Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. So many signs are there. So many signs are there now of how inauspicious the world is at this moment. So we don't want to come back. We don't want to come back in Kali Yuga or even Satya Yuga. We want to go back to Godhead. This is the goal of our life, should be the goal. And so in order to do that, we have to cut off all attachments and keep our lives auspicious at every moment. So this morning, I'm leaving actually at 9:30 to go speak in the high school, Palace Bears High School. So forgive me, I'm not going to take any questions or comments. I have to go and prepare. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.